Greetings, me guzzlers. Nice Guinness, a nice Irish stout. Because we're going Irish tonight. Look at that for a minute. We're going to make a Dublin Coddle. It's not really a stew, it's a little bit like a stew, but it's not. Okay, there are differences. But this is a coddle or coddle. I'll tell you why it's called that in a bit. But first I need to get some Guinness down there. Now, to make this, you're going to need some Irish bangers that some of you heathens may know as sausages, but these are a sort of special sort of sausage, bangers, because when you fry them up they go bang. You're going to want potatoes, and you're going to want onion, and then you're going to either want some water or stock. You can do either, ram stock, got some chicken stock, nice good there. We're also putting some leeks in it, and carrot. Now, purists will say you can't put carrots in a Dublin Coddle. Well, strictly speaking you can. And although carrots weren't originally in them, a coddle is like a leftover dish where you'd be using stuff up. So, if you've got carrots left over, chuck them in. And as it happens, carrots have been in the coddle since about 1900 anyway. Might not have been before then, but anyway, they're going in. I've got some garlic, some flat leaf parsley, a bit of butter, which comes near the end, and then some thick slices of back bacon. Unfortunately couldn't get that, so I've just got some thick cut bacon rashers, and that essentially is our ingredients. I've probably forgotten something. Well, some salt and pepper, obviously. No, that's it. Right, so let's chuck my peeler on the floor. So I'm now going to wash it up and break it. And let's get cooking our Dublin Coddle. I'm going to take my leeks and I'm going to cut off the green bit to start with, because that will sort of impart a bit of a nasty taste. What we're going to do is, I'm just going to trim this a layer off. Now, generally, the leeks can be quite dirty, so we will be rinsing these, but just going to get started by removing them outer bits, and then we're going to slice our leeks, and I'll chuck them in my colander and give them a wash. So I've already told you the main ingredients that go into this coddle. It's a traditional dish. It's something that, like I say, was done to use up leftovers. But various famous sort of Irish folk, some of which I've never heard of, but have sort of extolled the virtues of your good old coddle. And I said to you, it's a bit like a stew, but it's not. With a stew, everything's all chucked in together. Okay? With your coddle, it's layered. So yeah, you might argue, what's the bloody difference really? Come on, let's keep rolling off. Yeah, and again, and again. Got a bit green them bits. Perhaps I shouldn't have put them bits in. But this is done in layers with the potato on top. Right, so that's me leeks done. I'll give them a rinse in a second. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dice up my onion. Well, actually, I'm not going to dice it. I'm going to slice it. So I've got one yellow or brown onion. I'm just going to cut it like that, and then we're going to slice it, and I'll set that to one side. What's his name? Joyce. Is it James Joyce? James Joyce, the writer. He's no, James Joyce. Yeah, James Joyce. I can't remember. He's extolled the virtues of it, and in fact, it's appeared in some of his works. So there you go. He was the only one I'd heard of. Apparently, Sean O'Casey, lost on me, and Jonathan Swift. I didn't realise he was Irish. That's Robinson Crusoe, isn't it? So while you weren't watching, I've done them onions. They're all ready to go. Next thing is carrots. Now we're going to cut these into quite small chunks of carrot. So we can start by just peeling them. So this dish is meant to be just like a hearty meal, and it's believed to originate from back in the 1700s, partly to do with, you know, the famine in Ireland, when essentially you just shoved everything you got left over in a pot and cooked it up. You know, and that's what you ate. The other thing was, it's a bit like an early version of a takeaway, except you didn't actually take it away from the shop. But what you would do is, like sort of midday, you will make up your coddle and set it on the stove to cook. So the idea being that when you staggered home from the pub, there was your hot meal waiting for you. Now, I've mentioned about takeaways. With the advent of takeaways and things like that, I'm going to need that peeler in a bit. With the advent of takeaways and kebab shops and things like that, the coddle has sort of gone a little bit by the wayside. Because if you've been down the pub with your Guinness and you're feeling a bit peckish on your way home, you stopped on and got to get yourself a kebab, didn't you? Right, so let me get rid of that mess, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with that carrot. I'm not going to do my potatoes just yet, because obviously we don't want them browning or whatever. So what we will be moving on to is doing our garlic and doing our bacon, because we're chopping the bacon up. So what I've done with my carrot, I've halved it, and then I'm quartering it, and then I'm chopping it up into small little quarter moons, as it were. You want about a cup. I couldn't be bothered to do all the conversions. I thought, to be honest, at the end of the day, it's not as critical as baking, where you've got to make sure you get your weights right, you get your flour and everything right, otherwise you bugger it all up. If you're going to bake bread or cakes, bloody weigh it. Don't use a silly bloody cup system. Anyway, you might argue that in times of famine, how come they had things like sausages and bacon to hand? Well, they might not necessarily, but when country folk moved into Dublin, They often took with them, or brought with them, not took, brought with them, you know, like livestock, so pigs and that. And so this gave them a ready source of pig meat for bacon, for sausages and so on. And so as a result we ended up with these being incorporated into the coddle. Now I've got here, we don't want to go overboard on garlic. I've got my garlic, like I said before, these are quite small, so I've got about half a sort of bulb of garlic, if you like, and I'm just going to get this peeled, and then, and you might notice the Guinness magically filled itself up. Must be, I mean, I don't know where it came from. It must be me lucky leprechaun has come. That'll change my accent now. My lucky leprechaun has come and topped me up with Guinness. So all I'm doing here is I'm getting this peeled, and then I'll clear this away, and then we're going to mince this up, as it were. And then once I've got that bacon chopped, we'll be ready to start the cooking. Now I'm going to do this in my Dutch oven here. You want something that obviously, trying to chop his fingers off there, you'll be able to contain it so that you can layer it. We're going to cook initially stuff in stages. Put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out, and then we'll stack it in, we'll layer it. So let me just clean my bloody mess up and then chop my garlic. Here's my bacon, and what I'm going to do is I'm cutting this up. Yeah, what I might do on the thicker bit, let's cut it down there. And my garlic is already chopped there, so sort of cutting it into bits about that size. And what we're going to do in a second, like I say, what we've got left to do, prepare now, is our potatoes. But I don't, like I said, I don't really want to get doing that too soon. We've got to get some stuff cooking first. So I'm going to put this onto a medium to low heat, which on this front burner is more like a medium to high, and we're just going to put that bacon into there, and we're going to crispen it up. Okay, this should also render out some of that fat that we can then use. Alright, so that's that in there. What shall I stir that with? Let's stir it with that thing. There's me beer. Oh dear me, I've had a panic attack now. So, coddle, C-O-D-D-L-E, coddle. Where's the name come? Well, it's actually a French word. Coddle, C-A-U-D-L-E, and that essentially means to gently boil. Can you see that's starting to get hot now? A bit of steam off. And it was essentially a dish, like we said, to use up leftovers. Now it was also actually something that Catholics would cook on a Thursday night, because being that they weren't allowed to eat meat on a Friday, this was a way of getting rid of all the meat the night before, you know, the leftover meat, cooking it off and eating it all, so that I suppose they wouldn't be tempted on Friday. Oh look, I've got some bacon in there, let's have a bacon sandwich. Oh, I've got nothing out today, it's Friday. But the French word coddle, like I say, to gently boil. We are actually doing a bit of browning, or we will be, and that's not necessarily part of the original deal. However, by doing that, browning it and then simmering it in all those sort of juices, as it were, that's just going to increase the flavour. You could, I suppose, if you just want to be traditional, just chuck it all in with the stock, all the water, don't have to be stock. And then just let it all stew, curdle away, not stew. Until you're ready to eat it. Anyway, I'm just going to wash my hands of the bacon, wash up my knife and that. I still need my board for doing my potatoes. But other than that, that's all the chopping done. Apart from a bit of chopped parsley at the end. So as is typical with meat that we get from our supermarkets, there's quite a lot of moisture coming out of this bacon. Even though I bought dry cured, and that usually isn't so bad. So at the moment it's like, actually there's not a lot of fat come out of that either. So at the moment we're just sort of driving off that moisture. We want to crispen this up, although I think I might have to add some oil if I'm going to do that, to be honest, at the moment. But when it comes to sort of doing the sausages and the veg, we're not actually after cooking it at this stage, because when we've assembled the coddle, it's then going to sit and cook for an hour, and then we'll just finish it off in a hot oven. So nearer the time we're going to have to put the oven on, just so that we sort of perhaps put a bit of colour on the potatoes on the top. Now, I mentioned to you could put water in it, you could put stock in it, and over here I've got just over a litre of chicken stock. Now, you can make a white coddle. A white coddle just uses water, hence it's white. Or you can have a brown coddle, and a brown coddle uses oxtail soup, oxtail stock. So what have we got? A ginger coddle, because it's made with chutney. I'm not sure actually chickens are ginger, but they're reddish and gingery coloury, aren't they? They're not brown. Well, I suppose they are. Oh, I don't know. But actually, yeah, fancy chickens, like old George down at Albany. Oh, George, I've gone down back to the Shire now. He's one of them fancy ones that's all black with like a white ruff. Except he's obviously something wrong with him, because his ruff ain't round his neck, his ruff's on like top of his head, he can't walk in and see where he's going. Recently he disappeared. They thought the fox had him, the fox that shouldn't be there. He sort of disappeared. Oh, we got rid of the moisture now, so splashed it. Like earlier, I was frying off one of them sausages, because they're homemade traditional Irish bangers, to try them out. Bloody fat kept spitting in my eye. Anyway, George disappeared. George the chicken. And everybody assumed that George the chicken had been had. And then they found him, wandering about. Can't see where the bloody hell he's going. So they brought him back, put him in coop and give him a bit of haircut. He's still there now, so he's black with a little bit of white on him. So anyway, white and brown coddle. So I'm just going to cook this bacon a little bit more. Now, I think I might have to add a little dash of fat. Actually, we're going to be putting a bit of butter in it. I might put a bit of butter in, although that will probably burn. Trick there is to add a bit of oil. I'm just going to do that because when we come to do the, we need the butter at the end, endish. But when we come to do the onions and that, we're going to need a little bit of fat in there, as such. Although we are more sautéing them. So, I'm just going to carry on for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to whip them out into my bowl, and then we can start doing the next phase of cooking. Now, the old pan's starting to get a little bit brown on the bottom, and I don't think this is actually going to go crispy. There's not enough fat in this, to be honest. So I've turned the heat down to low, and we're just going to remove that bacon for now. And then our next thing is to sear our sausages. And like I say, the idea is just to sort of sear the outside, get a bit of colour. We're not interested in cooking them because they're going to get cooked in coddle later. So, here's my traditional Irish bangers, made earlier. There is a recipe coming up. So what I'm going to do, I might have to do these in batches, I don't know, might not have to. No, I think I'll just get them all in there. And what we want to do is just sear them on the outside, get a bit of colour on there. Now, these are called bangers, and if you watch the video about how to make them, yeah, I'll tell you in there, because of what's in them tend to make them, when you put them in the pan, explode. Hence the term bangers. I mean, I didn't realise it's also an Irish thing. I thought it was just a bit of a British thing. Bangers of mash, for instance. Sausages of mash. But apparently it's an Irish thing as well, bangers. So these have got garlic in it, thyme, rosemary. Oh, I can't remember. I'll have to watch a video. So I'm just going to get them a bit of colour in them. And then while they're doing that, let me move this. This is where I'm going to start doing my potatoes. Okay, so you want any sort of waxy potato, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get them peeled, and then we'll get slicing them up. So I'm just going to keep my eye on my sausages. Like I say, I'm not trying to cook them. I just want to get them a bit brown. Now my sausages are doing okay. Now there's fat in the sausages from the cuts of meat I had, and that's starting to come out, but there's also moisture, because these are made with added water. So I know I moan about it, but it is something to do with the way that the traditional Irish banger is made. Part of the reason it goes bang. So we are getting some fat out, we are getting some moisture. I've turned the heat up a bit. Like I say, on this front burner, it just never seems to be particularly hot, not like the back burner. I'll put it on the back burner. If I'm not careful, I'll overdo it. I just really wanted to get a bit of colour on them, okay, and get a bit of fat out of them, so that we've got something in there to do our onions. So I've peeled my potatoes. And then what we're going to do in a minute is I'm going to sort of thickly-ish slice them. Okay, and they will be the last thing to go into the coddle. Okay, so once these sausages are sort of browned off enough, in a minute they're taking their time browning. I think it might be because of the moisture that's in there at the moment. They're certainly not exploding, these old Irish bangers. The one that I cooked in the frying pan to taste it, that did burst. I wouldn't say it went bang, partly because the one I put in there, the end was all open, so you know, it's all coming at the end. But that's it about the old coddle. Not much else to tell you. Now, one thing you might have it with is your traditional Irish soda bread. Okay? Made one earlier. Check the video out. Now, soda bread was something that, well, not just the Irish made, but it's not an unleavened bread because you use baking soda, hence the term soda bread, to get it to rise. And that's an optional extra, but we're going to have some chunks of soda bread, like to soak up your juices, as it were, because you've got to salt your juices up, haven't you? And that's my third can of Guinness, and I've only got one more. And we haven't even started the bloody thing going yet, properly. Well, we have started it going, but we ain't done it. I was about to say the stew yet, coddle. I think there's so much moisture in them sausages, which is deliberate, as I said, that actually they're not really browning. So I'm going to remove these now. Okay, not that it really matters if they're not really brown. Whoops. I thought I just spilt that. Saw a drop on there and then realised some of it went on my finger. And that, top. That bit ain't. A bit that went on my finger. Let me just mop that out on a lovely clean oven. Not getting dirty. Now, into that pot, I'm now just going to put my onion and my washed and drained leek, which I think I just tried to show on the floor. And I stuck something right in. And now what we're going to do is I'm just going to toss that in, and then I'm going to add a little sprinkle of salt. Doing it with a wet hand, so I'll end up getting salt stuck to it. And we're now just going to turn that down a little bit, and we're just going to saute that. Now there's already a bit of brown on the bottom. If it looks like it's starting to sort of catch too much, then you can add a couple of tablespoons of water just to try and lift. Don't, to lift some of that flavouring off. But at the moment it seems to be pretty much, apart from the bloody dishy fucking mobile as well. I was just going to say that the old what's name is sort of being deglazed anyway, except this bloody thing will probably catch me tea towel on. So like I say, we're just gonna cook that for a little bit, and then I'm gonna put my timer on for about 11 minutes just to saute that a bit more. Okay, that's annoying me. I don't know why I keep doing that. We want to caramelise it. Not caramelise, caramelise. Although I do have to admit I learned something today, and I have ranted about it before, about herbs. Now, you Americans, I say you Americans, you might not be Americans watching this, but Americans always call herbs. And old Max always insists, that's Max from Tasting History, that's how you're meant to pronounce it, herbs. And it's like, no, herbs. However, turns out he's correct, and he's now said he gets loads of abuse whenever he mentions herbs on any of his recipes. And he said, the thing is, it would never when it start the word herb was herb without the H. And at some point in history, the Brits added an H. And so they became known as herbs. However, the original pronunciation was herb. Doesn't really matter whether you want to call it herbs or herbs, but as he said, don't keep telling me off for saying it wrong. I'm not saying it wrong. I'm not saying you're saying it wrong, because it's now more or less accepted it can be either. But if you want to call it herb, you call it herb. If you want to call it herbs, that's fine. Don't keep criticising people for calling it herbs. So there you go. So like I say, we're just going to saute this for about, the salt is bringing out some moisture out of this, and that's helping deglaze the pan a little bit. Okay, it'd probably have been better with a wooden spoon actually to help deglaze that. And so while that's doing that, we're going to get our knife back out again, and we're, like I say, now going to slice our potato. Now you might want to just make a flat edge on it, just more for safety reasons, because at the end of this 11 minutes we're going to start putting everything together. Well, actually, before we do that, we're going to put the garlic in, but the garlic only goes in for about a minute before we then chuck in the carrot, give that a couple of minutes, and then we start assembling it. So apologies to Max, because I think I've criticised him. And also the wife actually told us some sad news. It was on the news earlier, which I didn't know until obviously she just told me, but a little bit of sad news about the royal family. But anyway, let's not dwell on that right now. They've had about 10 minutes. I wouldn't say they're caramelising, but they're certainly cooked through. And what we can now do is I'm going to add in that garlic. And like I say, we're just going to cook that through for about a minute. Try and get all the garlic up. Probably been better than using my knife, wouldn't I? So I'll just toss that in there, through that little bit that tried to escape, and that bit that tried to escape. And now you put in our carrot. Like I say, you might be a traditionalist, you might say a Dublin Coddle does not have carrot. Well, it has since the 1900s. Okay? And all we're going to do is we're now just going to saute that for a few minutes. Again, we're not trying to cook the carrot, because, pardon me, that's Guinness talking. It's going to be cooked when we put in the stock and everything. Right, so I've just given that a stir, sorry, and now I'm just spreading it over, and what I'm going to do is just sprinkle that bacon and any of the juices that are in there over the top. And then, let me just keep doing that for a minute. We're now just going to add our sausages back on top. Like I say, so this is all built up in layers. We're going to add them juices that have run out of there. And then I'm going to take our stock. And now I've got just over a litre of stock. So we're pouring that in there. So the sausage is starting to float a bit. And we're just going to give that a little season with some salt and some pepper. And now this is where we now take our potato, and we're layering the potato on top. So I'm just going round and round, adding this potato. Don't know if I said how much potato we're adding. Got a little bit more here than I need, I think. The recipe I've got here, where is it? It's about just under 700 grams of potato. And the idea with this is it doesn't matter that it is sitting a little bit proud. I think we'll just do it like that. And then I'm just going to add a final little bit of seasoning on top of that potato. Before we now bring it to the boil, and then once it's brought to the boil, we're going to put it down to simmer. I'm going to put the lid on it, and we're going to cook it for an hour. Now, before the end of that hour, you want to come back and put your oven on to about 230, because we're going to finish it off in the oven. We're going to get some butter melted down. I only want about a tablespoonful of butter melted down, and we're just going to drizzle that over the top of the potato, put it in the oven for about 10 minutes or so, the idea being to hopefully brown it off a bit. So like I say, we're just waiting for that to come up to the boil, cover it, and then turn the heat back down a little bit. So I've turned the heat up a bit more, but we'll turn it up with the lid on, and that should cook the potatoes, even those that are exposed. Just that means I've just got to go and kill some time for an hour. One more Guinness to go. Right, that's had an hour. So let's take that lid off. It did overflow a little bit. So now I've got that melted butter. What we're just going to do is we're just going to drizzle that over the exposed potato. And now that's going to go in the oven for about 15-20 minutes. And hopefully that should move that top back. That should help sort of just brown off the top. So I'll set that for about 20. And then obviously we need to just get some parsley chopped up as a little bit of a garnish. So we're going to chop that up as well. I'm not too worried about the stalks. Apart from them in there, well, I think they can come out. And also we'll want to cut some chunks of the old soda bread. And then, like I say, you can serve it with that, or you don't have to serve it with anything, just have it like it is. I used to do bags and bags of this. Well, not bags, I didn't buy any bags then. When I used to work at Leeds Castle, little name drop there, worked in the kitchens, sort of a bit like a second chef really, I suppose, at the time. Used to have to chop loads of this stuff. So when we were getting ready for one of our big dinners, tons of this stuff. But anyway, I digress, because that's got nothing to do with Ireland. Okay, so while that's in there, in the oven, get myself something to eat it with, bowls or plates. Probably bowls is probably a little bit better, because obviously you've got that stock in there, and also I need to clean up where that thing overflowed, the bloody bastard thing. And also I've got to decide what I'm drinking next, because all my Guinness has gone. I should have kept some back, shouldn't I, to have for my final Dublin Coddle, the Guinness. but I'll have to find something else. So I put, for the last 5 minutes or so, I put the grill on just to see if I could brown the top of the potatoes. It's bloody hot. Right. So there we go. Not that brown, it's just starting to go actually. Pardon me. So before I do anything else, let's just sprinkle that parsley on top. Get it everywhere. Now we want some potato. Oh, you little shit. Trying to smash me. Sausage. Sorry, a banger. I've gone down deep to get the leeks and onion and carrot. And another sausage. Bit more potato and base filling. So, there we go. There it is, our steaming hot coddle. I've got some soda bread cut up ready. But let's, first off, let's just try, see what sort of like the stock is going to be. You can see it's hot. Can you see the steam coming off? So very watery. I mean, there's nothing really in there to thicken it up. You've got the potato, you can taste the carrot, you can taste the onion and the leek. The potato hot, but nice and soft, as it were. A bit of bacon and leek. And now let's try a bit of me homemade Irish banger. I bet that's going to be running up. Oh, I need to wash it out. Oh, that was hot. So, the sausage, just like that sausage should be. Essentially, you've got your sort of hearty, filling coddle, not a stew. But it is a bit like a stew. And so, that's it. So, I now better serve up some for the wife and we can go and partake of it. The soda bread. Got a bit of soda bread. I haven't cut much up because she probably won't like it. She says, I can't eat that. Too many sins. Let's soak a bit up. Very nice. So your traditional Dublin Coddle, and don't talk your mouth off.